Legends of Tobago and the Legend of Gangan Sarah are excerpts from the Folklore and Legends of Trinidad and Tobago by Gerald Besson. Carton Ottley remembers harvest time in Tobago. He describes how after the last load of cane had been ground and the last hogsheads, which are barrels, of sugar were rolled into the curing house, the fires under the boilers were put out and the preparation for crop over began. The estate owner, as a rule, contributed a young bull for the festival. Heaps of ground provisions, chicken, suckling pigs, and other foodstuffs were brought in by the métayers, and several demijohns of good alcoholic beverage distilled right there on the estate were much in evidence. On crop over night, the métayers and their families and friends gathered in the mill against the darkening sky, speaking softly. Large pots of food had been cooking all day. Fiddlers found their bows and tightened up the strings, tuning their instruments. The Goat King men, the drummers, warmed their drums over a coconut branch fire, tapping them from time to time to hear the rich pitch was achieved. Old Kate picked up a beat, and Balmoral de Noon followed quickly on his fiddle. Old Barker's grandson was the steelman tinkling away. Thus the music started. Fiddlers and drummers giving their best. With the music, the dance began. Men and women went round blazing fire, dancing quadrilles, reels, jigs, and polkas, dances which had supplanted the dances of their ancestors, but with a tempo that remained true over the evening. Later, when everybody had eaten their fill and danced to drop, as the blazing fire had begun to burn low, men would sing the songs of long ago, tunes of African origin, and the songs they had made of themselves. In those days, they took about a week off during crop over. It was a time to recover from the work of the harvest, but also from the revelries themselves. At that time, there still lingered in Tobago that long twilight that had begun well before the end of the 19th century, even before Tobago and Trinidad had been joined into one crown colony. Tobago had gone into an economic slumber. The busy little island of 100 to 150 years before that had enriched cotton planters from England and made fortunes for Dutch bankers was now almost a wasteland. Sugarcane production had dropped as a result of the collapse of the merchant trading house of Gillespie in London, which folded after the fall of the price of sugar. The great windmills of the southern flatlands at Lowlands and Backlash were now still. The waterwheels that had turned the mills in the lush valleys got aimless. The great houses unpainted, neglected, some abandoned, were being sold off. Since emancipation, Tobagonians had created a strong village life, extending families and kinships under the aegis of Moravian preachers and the late Methodist pastors. The school system produced individuals of particular academic merit, some outstanding. As the estates were sold off, they were acquired increasingly by the Tobagonians themselves. Out of this shift in land holding arose a sensitivity to property and ancestral land. The heritage of the older heads were embedded in the Tobagonian collective consciousness. At the time of Otley's writing, one could say that virtually every Tobago family owned land and possessed a house. In this period, there was calm for some, economic depression for others. In the long quiet evenings, the sparks from the coal pots cracking in the wind, the stories of long ago were told. The children drew near, the home sweet home etchings on the glass chimneys of the pitchway lamp, throwing huge wavering shadows on the walls. The storytellers would recount the powers of the men of old, and of an old slave woman who had the gift of stopping a windmill at a glance, and so was able to cause the master's wife back to raise in wealth whenever one of her own was abused. There were stories of fairy maids who lived beneath the wheel at Arno's Bay and took the nice-looking boy from Culloden for 3 days. Some people say because she had smooth, glowing skin. Upon his return, he had wisdom where before he had been simple. He grew wealthy, buying one, then another sugar estate. His son died, however, drowning. The other excerpt is the legend of Gangang Sara. The legend of Gangang Sara, the African witch of Golden Lane, has its origin in the latter half of the 18th century. On a stormy night, she was blown from her home in Africa across the sea to Tobago and landed quite safely at the village of Lekki. From there, she journeyed to Golden Lane in search of her family, who had long ago been transported there. She lived to a great age and is remembered for her wisdom and kindness. She became the loving wife of Tom, whom legend says she had known as a child in her native Africa. After her Tom died, wishing to return to her native land, she climbed a great still cotton tree and tried to fly, not knowing that she had lost the art of flight as a result of having eaten salt. To this day, the names of Tom and Sarah can be seen inscribed upon the headstones of their graves, where they have laid side by side for close upon to 100 years. More stories like these should be heard in the Folklore and Legends of Trinidad and Tobago by Gerald Besson. Thank you. Legends of Tobago and The Legend of Gangang Sara are excerpts from the Folklore and Legends of Trinidad and Tobago by Gerald Besson. Carton Otway remembers harvest time in Tobago. He describes how after the last load of cane had been ground and the last hogsheads, which are barrels, of sugar were rolled into the curing house, the fires under the boilers were put out and the preparations for crop over began. The estate owner, as a rule, contributed a young bull for the festivities. Heaps of ground provisions, chicken, suckling pigs, and other foodstuffs were brought in by the métayers, and several demijohns of good alcoholic beverage distilled right there on the estate were much in essence. On Cupover night, the métayers and their families and friends gathered in the milliard against the darkening sky, speaking softly. Large pots of food had been cooking all day. Fiddlers found their bowls and tightened up the strings, tuning their instruments. The goatskin men, the drummers, warmed their drums over a coconut bran fire, tapping them from time to time to hear the rich pitch was achieved. Old May pick up a beat, and Balmoral the Noon followed quickly on the fiddle. Old Bacchus's grandson was the steelman tinkling away. Thus the music started, fiddlers and drummers giving their best. With the music, the dance began. Men and women went round blazing fire, dancing quadrilles, reels, jigs, and polkas, dances which had supplanted the dances of their ancestors, but with a tempo that remained true over the ages. Later, when everybody had eaten their fill and danced to drop, and the blazing fire had begun to burn low, men would sing the songs of long ago, tunes of African origin, and the songs they had made of themselves. In those days, they took about a week off during crop over. It was a time to recover from the work of the harvest, but also from the revelries themselves. At that time, There still lingered in Tobago that long twilight that had begun well before the end of the 19th century, even before Tobago and Trinidad had been joined into one